Turn your living room into a joyful, hands-free playroom with CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Your child sings, moves, and learns right alongside JJ and friends, all on the big screen. It's designed thoughtfully to spark speech, rhythm, and coordination through songs and active play. Try an ad-free, safe, and interactive way to make screen time part of their learning and growth. Parents love how easy it is, voice-controlled and frustration-free. Kids love every moment of singing, laughing, and playing along. It's fun for them, and it's feel-good for you. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Just search Volley in your TV's app store and start your free trial of CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ today. That's CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ, available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Search Volley and start your free trial today.
Volley. Welcome to Homeschooling Outside the Box, the podcast that encourages and equips moms who homeschool an outside-the-box child. Hey there, I'm Cindy Renna, and this is episode 11. Today we continue our Meeting Charlotte Mason series, and we are talking about nature study. I can still see it now. Each of my children around age 2 or 3 would have the same experience, laying on their belly, staring at a beetle, little fingers extended towards the fat bug, darting eyes keeping up with the skittering critter crossing our back porch, excited nerves mustering the courage to touch it. It was their first nature study. "Look, Mom, look!" It's a common phrase of preschoolers because everything is new. It's the first beetle, the first snowfall, daffodils popping up for the first time. Their cries to look can get tiresome, but really it's a cry for knowledge. They're saying so much more than we think. Come share this with me, delight with me, teach me, tell me more. That's what they're really saying. Children are generally better at nature study than adults. Their fresh perspective is a gift that they have that we get numb to as we get older. Nature study reminds us that we don't have to be seeing something for the first time to be excited about it. Look, Mom, look. And that's essentially what nature study is. Look, delight, share, repeat. Charlotte Mason had a lot, and I mean a lot, to say on the subject of nature study. She saw it as a natural and necessary activity for a full childhood and education. Now, last time on the podcast, we talked about the great outdoors. Today, we're going to zero in a little bit more on how to study the great outdoors. This is more suited for kids age 6 and up when you're doing school. In the preschool series, I talked a lot about nature too. If you've got a preschooler, that would be age 0 to 5 or 6. Go ahead and listen to those for more in-depth. So this is more for the study portion. So what is nature study? Simply, it's the study or close observation of nature. Nature study is its own subject in a Charlotte Mason education. I would say you tack it on to science. It's part of science, but it is definitely a non-negotiable part. So who does nature study? Like I said, nature study is for everybody, but it's done informally in the preschool years, and it's done as a formal subject beginning around age 6 or 7. Every youth should know something about the flowers in the field, the birds in the air, the stars in the heavens, and the many fascinating wonders that happen every day. Charlotte Mason. Miss Mason advised that the better part of a child's first 6 years should be spent out of doors and becoming familiar with the natural world around them. So what should the children be studying? Well, in short, whatever is directly around him and local to your area. Nature study is about learning the environment you live in, so it will differ greatly what you are learning based on where you live. However, there are some common categories. Crops. Every child should have a basic understanding of the local pastures, meadows, and field crops that surround him. Cornfields and cotton surround us in Alabama, but in Michigan, when we lived there last year, had plentiful orchards to choose from in the fall. Pay attention as you drive along the highway and point out the fields and crops to your child. Visit a farmer's market and consider the local produce. Is there someone you can buy fresh eggs from or raw milk from? Visiting a local farm or participating in you-pick activities. They have these a lot for, you can pick your own apples, pick your own strawberries or blueberries and pumpkins. Those are very common produce to pick yourself at a farm. These are all a great way for children to develop a field-to-plate mentality. Children should also experience the process of planting a seed and nurturing it to harvest. Backyard or container gardens are fantastic ways to help with this. The second would be flowers. Myrtle, jewelweed, black-eyed Susan, every wildflower that grows in the neighborhood should be well known to children. They should be able to describe the shape, size, and placements of their leaves, and whether the flowers have a single blossom or a head of them. When they know the flower so well that they could recognize it anywhere, they should take a look at the area it grew in so that they'll know what kind of terrain to look for it again in the future. Charlotte Mason. Wildflowers are really what Miss Mason was referring to here, but children can benefit from a walk around the neighborhood to observe what everybody is growing as well. When you do come upon wildflowers, observe the habitat it grows in and make a note of where you found it and what time of year. Pick a few to press into wax paper or dry out in a book. When planting flowers in your own yard, be sure to make a note of the name of the flower. Take a moment to show your child the leaves, how the petals look, and observe other details. What shades of color are represented in the flower? Is the flower fragrant? Once it's planted, do you notice that it attracts birds, butterflies, or bees? Trees. Most of our neighborhoods are filled with native trees, but I bet you'd be hard-pressed to find a child, or an adult for that matter, to tell you the name of half of them. Trees are some of the most obvious pieces of nature to observe. One of our favorite activities is to choose one deciduous tree to observe all year. Children especially love this activity of sketching the tree over the passing months and allowing the tree to teach them about seasonal changes. Children should also become familiar with trees at an early age. They should pick about 6 in the winter when the leaves are gone, perhaps an elm, a maple, a beech, etc., and watch them during the year. Charlotte Mason. Another thing to study in your nature study is seasonal changes. So in addition to watching the trees for seasonal changes, you and your child can observe other parts of nature to look for clues. You can look for flowers and local wildlife to tell you about the changes coming. Watching squirrels gather nuts to store away for the winter and birds flit around collecting materials to build a nest in the spring are common favorites of children. Summer is a great time to visit the pond and search for frogs, and even in the dead of winter, nature can reveal its secrets about how rest is necessary for rebirth. Nature has many lessons to teach, and some of these truths are beautifully displayed in the changing seasons. All right, so let's talk about what resources are needed to teach nature study. The first thing would be a calendar. You can keep a calendar of firsts to make notes on. Charlotte Mason did this with her students, and here's what she said about it. It's a great idea to have children keep a calendar to record when and where they saw the first oak leaf, the first tadpole, the first primrose, the first ripe blackberries. The next year, they can pull out the calendar and know when to anticipate seeing these things again, and they can note new discoveries. Imagine how this will add enthusiasm for daily walks and nature hikes. A day won't go by when something isn't seen to excite them. Charlotte Mason. Another must-have for your nature study is a nature journal. In the past, we've kept small spiral sketchbooks as our nature journals. After years of using a small spiral sketchbook for our nature journal, I put together something that would give us a bigger picture of our study. I was wanting to be able to pull the idea of the calendar in with our nature journals and be able to track over 3 years the changes in nature that we saw, and also give us the freedom to sketch freely whatever we saw, but a little bit of guidance as well on things to look for during different seasons. So I put together a nature journal. It's in my shop. You can go to cindyrenna.com shop and look for it. It's a downloadable nature journal. I think it's $8.99. So you can print this out and you can glue it into a large spiral notebook. I'm also working on getting this in a printed version for those who don't want to do all the printing at home. The good thing to printing it at home is it kind of gives you freedom. You can pick and choose which pages you want to use, and therefore it'll be, give you a little guidance, but not be too directed if you want a little bit more freedom. The printed version will have extra pages for free sketching because that's a big part of this nature journal. You don't want to turn it into a textbook. You don't want to turn it into, okay, we have to fill out every single page and go find every single thing. You want to have the freedom to be out in nature and delight in creation and what you're seeing, and then sketch what you are drawn to and what your children, have your children sketch what they are drawn to. So you do want to keep that freedom. Charlotte Mason did not grade her students' nature books. She didn't critique them. This was very much a relationship between the child and nature. So that I'm trying to keep that intact with this nature journal. But go ahead and check that out in the shop. If you type in coupon code podcast, you will get a discount off your purchase. So go ahead and check that out and look for the printed version coming hopefully by early next year. So here's some thoughts from Charlotte Mason on the idea of a nature journal. So as soon as the child is old enough, he should keep his own nature notebook for his enjoyment. Every day's walk will give him something interesting to add. 3 squirrels playing in a tree, a blue jay flying across the field, a caterpillar crawling up a bush, a snail eating a cabbage leaf, a spider suddenly dropping from a thread to the ground, where he found ivy and how it is growing, and what parts of the plant were growing in it, and how ivy manages to climb. An intelligent child will think of millions of little things to record in his nature notebook. At 5 or 6, he can illustrate his notes with watercolors. Charlotte Mason. So she did use watercolors, have her students use watercolors in their nature journals. Again, you don't want to get too caught up in having to repeat exactly what she did, but instead just the method behind it, the philosophy behind it is what's important, which is recording it. So you can use colored pencils. That's what my kids prefer to use. It is nice to include the watercolor sometimes, but especially if you're out on a hike, that can be kind of daunting to figure out how to have watercolors at hand. So colored pencils are a great choice. A lot of times we will also record after the fact in our nature journal. So if we go out and maybe see something really interesting, we could take a picture of it or mark down what kind of plant it was, what kind of animal it was. And then when we come home and we have some more space, we can sit down and look it up in a nature book so we can get a more detailed picture to copy. We can also copy from the picture on our phones that we take or cameras. That's another way to record in your nature journal as well. So use your imagination. It doesn't always have to be sitting out in the woods, on the ground, sketching in the moment. You can do a lot with these nature journals. The point is to create a relationship and kind of have a keepsake of his time in nature. Okay, some cautions when teaching nature study. The first one is do not overly focus on information and terminology. Especially in the early years, nature study is a time for observation and appreciation. Charlotte Mason said, "With this in mind, our priority in nature knowledge should be to make sure that the child has a personal, vital familiarity with the things he sees in his environment. It's more important for him to know the difference between snakeweed and lady's thumb, or hawkweed and dandelion, and where to find this or that plant, and what it looks like as it grows, than it is for him to be able to define terms like epigynous or hypogynous. There's nothing wrong with knowing scientific terminology, but that should come later, after the child has seen and studied the real thing in its own habitat and tried to reproduce it in his nature notebook." The second caution is not to make nature study overly formal. Likewise, this is not the time for a formal lesson or filling his head with facts. Nature study is a very child-directed activity. Charlotte Mason said, "It's the same with object lessons. We're in no hurry to develop his ability to make detailed observations about little parts of everything and have him label them as opaque, brittle, flexible, and so on. We don't want these kinds of exercises to dampen his curiosity. We'd rather leave him to be receptive and respectful so that he asks questions and discusses things with his parents like the lock on the river, or how a mower works, or why fields are plowed, and provides opportunities for his parents to talk. These are the kinds of concepts that provide seeds to the child's mind, and we don't want to make him a show-off who thinks he knows it all." So again, I love how Charlotte is constantly weaving in character to all of her studies. Even nature study is about forming the person. All right, how nature study looks for us. So we do nature study once or twice weekly. We like to do a nature journal entry once a week, and then we like to do a family nature walk as well. So sometimes those studies happen at the same time. After our walk, we come home and we'll put something in our journal, or sometimes what we're studying in science ends up being something really worthwhile that we want to sketch and reproduce in the nature journal. So we've done it that way, but it's definitely twofold. You want to be putting things in your nature journal, but you also want to be out in nature studying. So you can do your nature journal entries. You can take a walk out in the woods. You can go on a hike. You can go to a national park and go really big, or you can do something as simple as go out in your backyard. The kids go out with their nature journals and colored pencils, and my instruction, the most detailed I get, is usually to say, sketch something God made. So I don't want you coming in, with a man-made sketch. I really want them focusing on nature. So they're welcome to write notes about their drawings on the page as well. I do like for them to add the date, or at least label, a squirrel gathering nuts, or whatever it is that they drew. But their nature books are their own, and so it's not something I critique. The nature walks are much more casual. I do take my camera and will point out trees and flowers and insects, but the point is really to create a passion in them for being out in nature. We take a few reference books along if we want to know what kind of tree or bird we're seeing, and I'll talk more about those specifics at the end of this. In a more spontaneous way, we are consciously aware of nature. So we take notice of nature on a daily basis, either through looking out the kitchen window or going to the park, sometimes collecting a specimen to take home. Doing nature study on a weekly basis will heighten your child's awareness of nature in general, and yours too. I can't tell you how many times we've been in the middle of something and we hear the geese flying overhead, and so we all stop what we're doing and run to the front door and look outside and watch the geese flying across the sky. Or, if a squirrel is doing something funny, or if a cardinal comes, we're big fans of cardinals, we have to run out and watch them and take a picture. So just making it a habit you'll find nature study making its way into your everyday life. The kids and I also hang bird feeders, and we plant a garden. And like I said, we're constantly including each other. Come look at what's happening outside. Okay, so how might nature study look different for our outside-the-box kids? Outside-the-box kids need to be in nature just as much as typical children, if not more. Nature is calming and soothing to the soul. I'm sure you guys have heard of the green effect, this especially with super hyperactive kids. This is a real thing. I'm going to link to some of the studies in the notes. But nature study in general is a very relaxing subject. There's no right or wrong answer, and this makes it a favorite among children with challenges. Their nature journal should be a comfort zone to them. They can write or draw whatever they choose. What they find interesting and what you find interesting can be completely different things, and that's okay. If you end up with a sketchbook full of ants, that's okay too. A lot of times, especially kids on the autism spectrum, have very specific interests, so that's fine. Let them fill their nature journal with all insects. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can gently point out new bugs and plants to try to expand your child's horizons, but don't try to pull him away from what he is naturally drawn to. All right, I mentioned some of the resources up with in the Nature Journal section. I am going to link to a bunch of these in the show notes. You can go on Amazon and get most of this stuff. There are some of our favorite nature study books. The one I've got to mention is the Tree book, and I love the subtitle. It's for kids and their grown-ups. So we really enjoyed the Tree book, but there's a bunch. So you'll just have to check the notes. You also need some sort of knapsack. We really like drawstring knapsacks. You can just throw it on your back. It doesn't get too heavy. You'll need binoculars of some sort of bug collection kit or little box to put your nature treasures in, but you don't need a whole lot. So I will link to some of those favorites. I'll also link to the journal if you wanted to check that out as well. But I'd love to hear from you. How does your family do nature study? There's a lot of Charlotte Mason homeschoolers who listen to this podcast. I'm always open for ideas, so leave some notes in the comments. Maybe start a discussion here, and we can all enrich our homeschool with nature study. That's it for today, for this episode of Homeschooling Outside the Box. Thank you so much for listening. Next time, I'm going to continue our Charlotte Mason series. We're going to talk about narration, so make sure you check back for that. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.